Hi, it's Western Rockies. We're here live at Comikaze 2015 with Huston Huddleston, creator of the amazing Hollywood Sci-Fi Museum and Hollywood Horror Museum, and CEO of the new Starship Foundation. Welcome.
Thank you. It's nice to finally meet you guys in person.
Definitely very cool. For all of you missing the interview, check it out. It's on our website. First things first, Huston, how did this all come to be, this entire concept?
Well, it began with that bridge set over there from Star Trek Next Generation. I found that basically in a dumpster and sitting outside, and been sitting outside for 5 years. And I found that in the original series bridge, and it had been made for a tour back in the late 90s. And I found it a little over 3 years ago, and I rescued it, and I didn't know what I was going to do with it. I just knew if I didn't get it, it was going to be gone forever. So then about a year and a half later, we realized, okay, there's no museum that will take our bridge sets and put them and display them the way we want them, because they're huge and, no one else really cared. And there's no sci-fi museum in the world. There's the EMP in Seattle that's sci-fi and horror and this and fantasy and, a bit of everything, but nothing that's like focused in. So I said, let's do our own. So that's how the Hollywood Sci-Fi Museum began, and the Horror Museum began kind of similarly, because I kept getting all these horror props, and they didn't work in the sci-fi side. So I said, hell, let's make our own. So that's it.
So, a lot of this started with your Kickstarter, one for each of the museums. Were you always that confident from the beginning? Did you just go head first thinking, yep, this is going to happen? Or was it difficult? Did you have your doubts?
Oh, I was always confident.
No, no, of course. I didn't know what the hell I was doing, number one. That's the big thing. Right place, the right time. Now, what came into it, I did grow up in a showbiz family, so immodestly, I'd produced some TV and some films, so I knew how to get things together. But the thing is, I didn't know what to get together, because I'm not a museum guy. But I knew that if I got the right team behind me and the right group of people who were brilliant and much more brilliant than I in other respects, it could be done. And I knew the time was right. I mean, look at this convention, look at Comic-Con. This is the age of the nerd. And I really think the same thing goes for horror. And so, I just said, let's get the best people. Like for the horror, I got Clive Barker and Tom Holland, Joe Dante, and the daughters of Vincent Price and Boris Karloff. I did similarly with the Sci-Fi Museum. And you get that kind of power behind you, you can do anything.
So a lot of these ideas are based on, the concept of education. That seems to be at the core of these two museums. How are you hoping to incorporate education into this? And how are you hoping to convince parents that sci-fi is educational and so is horror?
Well, sci-fi's easy. Sci-fi you can mix in directly with NASA and Lockheed Martin and Boeing and SpaceX and the science and the technological aspects. Sci-fi is really predated real science. I mean, anyone can look at Star Trek and figure that out. That's a no-brainer. Plus, it's cool, so you'll get the cool factor, and then you'll come in and actually learn something, which is pretty brilliant. And also learn about sci-fi and filmmaking and prosthetics and all that. Now, the horror one is the tricky one. That's the one that initially I talked to people who said, oh, it's all going to be gore, and no. You do that, you're ostracizing all these other groups of people, including anyone under 12, unless, you've got crazy parents that are just willing to show their 5-year-old The Exorcist or The Shining. But then,
Did that happen to you?
Yeah, it did. No, I was 5 and I auditioned for The Shining, but my parents wouldn't even let me read the script because it was filled with profanity and all this stuff, and I was a good little Christian boy. But that said, you start out with something that's not gory. You start out with the Munsters and Ash or the Addams Family, something, or the original classic monsters from Universal. Yeah, okay, they a little creepy, but not in your face, heads ripped off, bloody, dismembered, sexuality stuff. That would be its own side. So you start out mainstream. You show kids that, okay, that scary zombie from Walking Dead is actually just a robot. It's a prosthetic. Sometimes it's a puppet. Sometimes it's animatronic. You learn this. So sometimes it's CG. It's just some green dots or red dots on their face. If they learn that, you got it. You're home free, and then you can bring a busload of kids and actually teach them something that ties in with STEM-based education and the education of California. So you can start with a horror with prosthetics. You can start with sci-fi with pretty much everything else.
So before we wrap up, what have people got to look forward to in the next couple of years? What's happening along this timeline?
Oh my gosh. We're going to start out on tour beginning of next year, beginning of 2016. Probably we're talking to Japan, we're talking to China, we're talking to Korea, and to Germany and to England. They all want our sci-fi museum temporarily. And a couple of you want it permanently, so we can have a whole Hollywood sci-fi franchise in other countries, which would be amazing. Dubai even as well. Amazingly, America is the one place where we haven't found anyone who's willing to put money up front, which is heartbreaking. But then again, that's why we're doing this, because nobody else has done it. People with a lot more money and a lot more clout than we do, and we're doing it. So, we'll just do it the way we can to make the money we need to build our permanent place in 2018 in Hollywood.
And now, just very briefly, where can people find you? Where can people support you and keep up to date with everything? HollywoodSciFi.com and HollywoodHorror.org. We don't have .com on that. We're trying to get it. But, HollywoodSciFi.org or .com and HollywoodHorror.org. And you can find us Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, Pinterest, Tumblr. You'll find so much of us, it's going to be sickening. That's how much we're out there. Well, thank you so much, and thank you for being on our show.
Thank you.
For the interview today and, a couple of weeks ago.
It was probably the most fun radio interview I've ever had.
That means a lot to us. It honestly does. Thank you so much.
Thank you.